configuration protocol supports dynamic configuration of networking on those various clients that so allow it. It assumes that the client actually is requesting DHCP configuration. In other words, there's a connected network card from the client, such as the first Ethernet card, and that's represented by the ifcfg-eth0 file in the client's etc/sysconfig/network scripts directory. If you see a bootproto equals DHCP in that file, then that client is requesting dynamic network configuration from a DHCP server. So how do you create a DHCP server? A sample configuration file is available in the dhcp.conf.sample file in the user shared doc dhcp-3.0.5 directory. The version number may change. I've copied that file to the etc/dhcp.conf location. And here are the contents of the file. The subnet and net mask should correspond to the network address and subnet mask for my LAN, at least the LAN that's being served by this DHCP server. The option routers directive should be associated with your gateway address. This one happens to already match mine. The subnet mask also matches my LAN subnet mask, but since I do not have a NIS domain, I don't want the DHCP server to suggest to my clients that I do, so I comment out this directive. As I use the example.net domain for my personal network, I set example.net as the domain name. If you want common DNS servers for your clients, you can set that here. And if you have more than one DNS server available, you can use more than one option domain name server or directives. The time offset sets a time relative to Greenwich Mean Time. 18,000 seconds corresponds to 5 hours. In other words, Eastern Standard Time is 5 hours behind Greenwich Mean Time. But I'm in the Pacific time zone, so I make some minor changes here. Pacific Standard Time is 8 hours behind Greenwich Mean Time, or 28,800 seconds. That's 3,600 seconds times 8. If I have a local NTP server, I'd want to activate this option so the other clients can stay in sync. If I have a Windows Internet name server, I'd want to activate the option NetBIOS name servers directive with the IP address of that WINS server. The range is the range of assignable IP addresses. But this is specific to boot P. In other words, if I'm setting up this DHCP server to serve a remote network, that remote network can be assigned addresses between 192.168.0.128 and 192.168.0.254. That leaves 198.168.0.1 through 127 as assignable to the local network. The default lease time and max lease time is the amount of time a client has a certain IP address before it has to be renewed. It doesn't mean that the client has to end up with a different IP address every 43,200 seconds, but it's quite possible. Finally, a DHCP server can assign a static address to key systems. For example, if you have a name server, you'll want to set it to a fixed IP address, since that's how you refer to a DNS or a name server in files like etc/resolve.conf. So I might change this to something like 192.168.0.1. Of course, I'd have to make sure that DNS server's Ethernet card actually has this specific hardware address, which I can check by running the ifconfig command on that particular system.